Okay. Good morning and welcome to the RESISTO Workshop, the innovative approaches in protecting communication infrastructure and the exploitation of the results. I'm Federica Pascucci and my role in the RESISTO project is the dissemination manager. I would like to thank all the participants for attending this online event, and I would like also to thank all the RESISTO partners involved in its organization. Before starting, few remarks on the workshop. We started the workshop with a special guest. Then we have two presentations to introduce the RESISTO project and its achievements. Then we have some spare minutes for a virtual coffee break. And then we have two open sessions. During the open session, we would like to discuss with the participants about issues on security of telecommunication infrastructure and the exploitation of the outcome of this project. So please don't be shy and proactively interact with the panelists. To this aim, please remember that by default, the microphone of the participant is muted. So during the open session and the discussion, if you want to speak, you have to raise your hands. Your microphone will be automatically unmuted, and then you can interact with the panelists. You should see the button for raise your hands on the right bottom corner of your WebEx windows. After speaking, please remember to lower your hand using the same button. Of course, you can also use the chat to ask questions or to ask when it's your turn. Finally, I would like to recall that we are recording this event and we will send to all the participants the link to the video. Well, we have a tight program, so let's start the workshop. We are going to start with a special guest, as I mentioned before. We are glad to host an unscheduled presentation from Max Brandt. Max Brandt is a policy officer from the Directorate General for Home Affairs of the European Commission. Besides his role of policy officer, we know him very well for his passionate and effective way in driving the community of European research and innovation for security and the infra-scoping group. Thank you, Max, for supporting the RESISTO Workshop. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Just maybe a test if I can be well understood. Could you just confirm? Yeah, I assume that this is a yes, because otherwise somebody would have told me now that I cannot. So thank you very much for this invitation. I'm just going to share also a few slides with you. Second. Okay, I hope that you see now what you are supposed to see.
Yes.
So, okay, perfect. So thank you very much for this invitation. Thanks to you for the kind introduction, and then to Bruno especially for having invited me today. So it's really a pleasure for me to speak today on behalf of the European Commission, and I'm very interested also to see where you are going with RESISTO, which is, I find, a very, very interesting project, and I'm also very thankful that the consortium does so much on top of the project work. You mentioned already the community of European research and innovation for security and several other formats where especially with Bruno and also with others, we can always rely on a very good cooperation. Let me maybe start very, very briefly by pointing out I don't want to bore all of you with the history of security research, because I think you are all well aware, so I'm going to skip large parts of what you see here. But what is very important for me to say, and which is really also thanks to the excellent project work which was delivered in the last years, is that the profile of security research and innovation nowadays is much higher than it used to be. When we started with security research, it was something which was seen as mostly an industry support program, which it still is to some extent, and it has to be. But what is definitely different in the last years is that the political profile of innovation as a building block of comprehensive security policies in Europe is on a much higher visibility than it used to be. We have put here a little bit on this timeline the different mentionings of where our program is mentioned and where it has been put in the different key policy documents. And especially recently, I wanted to point out that in the last year, so towards the end of Horizon Europe, we really managed to dramatically increase the political value. And this is, of course, mainly thanks to all of you, because our program is nothing without good projects. I mean, all what we can do is programming, but the excellence comes from you and the other projects. So if you look nowadays at key policy documents, maybe to mention the recent counterterrorism agenda, the disaster risk overview of DG ECHO, or what I also cite here, the EU Security Union Strategy, you will always find a specific chapter on innovation. And this was in civil security, and you will all know that, not always like this. Innovation and strategic approach to research and innovation is something which we know from defense since a very long time. But in civil security, it was always a struggle. It was always a little bit clashing with the short-term operational needs. And we all probably heard this already from practitioners that they said, yes, great research and innovation, but first of all, I don't have time. Second of all, I don't have money. But to establish this mind shift and say, it's not only of adding some kind of crazy innovative tool. No, it is a strategy for you to be able to respond properly to what comes up in the future. This understanding is now much better, and we can demonstrate this also by the role which innovation has in strategic policy documents. And I put for you here the EU Security Union Strategy, where you might have seen that there's a specific paragraph on our program, basically, or on innovation policy and security, where exactly this wording, which we try to hammer into the heads of decision makers here to see, it's a strategic tool. It has a strong connection with other questions like strategic autonomy, like the industrial excellence of Europe, like the ability to act autonomously in crisis. And of course, it has also a big industrial and market dimension. Another reference which I wanted to mention here, you see it on the right side of this slide. In December, the European Parliament responded to the Security Union Strategy in a resolution. And it was also very, very good for us to see, and I think very motivating for all people who are active in our program, that also the Parliament gave us a clear mandate, and you can see it here. It calls on the Commission to proactively plan for research and deployment, ensuring EU internal security. This was also not always like that. So it is really for us a clear political mandate given by the elected representatives of Europe to say, please continue doing what you are already doing, or maybe do even more, or do it slightly better. And in the same paragraph, you will actually find this sentence here, highlighting how important the communication issue is there. And it is actually in the Parliament's resolution the only sector, the only infrastructure sector which is singled out. While there are, of course, others which are also very, very important, but the European Parliament singled out communication. And that's not by accident like that. And this is something which is, of course, of high relevance for Resisto. So let me say that in our view, and also in the way how we want to approach it in the future of our program, communication is, let's say, a master capability because without a functioning communication system, all other infrastructures can also not operate. So it has a transversal role, a cross-cutting role. And also, if you look at the capability needs and the demands which are coming to us from practitioners, from EU agencies, from the member states, it is communication is always one of the first. It is what everybody understands is absolutely crucial for both on the systemic strategic level, so what you are focusing in Resisto most, but also on the very down-to-earth operational level that some people just say, okay, we need better communication tools. And many of you will be also aware of our current Horizon 2020 project Broadway, where some of your consortium partners are also active in, where, for example, we really try to develop a specific communication tool for public security, while Resisto is our main project to secure the communication infrastructure in Europe as such. So we need to do both because we get also the demand for both. And communication is one of the major issues and will continue to be one of the major areas where we will look into in our program. And this is what makes your project especially important. And you will also see, with a view of now what is coming up in the future, Horizon Europe is going to start soon. Of course, I cannot go into detail yet about the content, even though some of you might or have already a quite clear idea of what might come up. But I can tell you definitely what is our vision and what this means for communication and what this could mean for the follow-up of what happens after Resisto, for example. The idea is that we abandon in the infrastructure domain this sectorial approach. While before we had projects like yours, and we had made a call and we said, okay, improve the cyber physical resilience of transport, communication, energy, whatever, smart cities, and then you had one project per sector. We believe that this approach was useful. It has led to a lot of very, very good projects, but we have also covered basically everything in the last years. And this is why the idea is now, with the knowledge created, let us go for an approach which is per definition cross-cutting. So we do not ask for the covering of specific sectors, but we do ask for specific problems and phenomena. And we are definitely going to look more into the issue of hybrid threats and strategic autonomy. We are definitely going to look into the question of resilience against pandemics. We are going to look into autonomous systems for infrastructure protection, among others. So what this means for everybody engaged in communication, I think that there is definitely a role for communication experts in all of those priorities. And I think also that another feature which we are going to put much more focus on is very relevant now also for Resisto as a project which will come to an end in the foreseeable future, that we would like to make much more use of synergies with other programs, be it EU-funded programs or be it national programs, to have a more clear understanding also of how solutions are uptaken. Because this is still a challenge for us, and this is also why I would like to invite you, the Resisto Consortium. Sometimes there is uptake of solutions happening without us knowing it, because you develop some knowledge while you are researching, and maybe you are using it for one of the products or solutions or which you already have in your portfolio, but this stays invisible to us. So it's really, we invite you, give us feedback whenever you made use of something what you developed within the EU-funded research. That's very, very interesting for us. And especially in Horizon Europe, we are trying to establish a more clear pathway to say we have a research project, and then we have synergies with other funding instruments, be it now the ones in the area of internal security, for example, our Internal Security Fund, or be it the Digital Europe program, be it regional funds, or be it maybe other funding, private or which exists on the level of the member states. And the community of European Research and Innovation for Security, which you know well and to which you have contributed in the past when it was still called community of users, is for us a tool which is now even more important and which will be more structured. So those workshops are not only there for creating knowledge and facilitating exchange, but they should play a more strategic role also on this pathway to see where are the potential synergies, where are gaps which we need to address in the future in our program. This is also very important for us because this should be a process which happens between the projects which are running and us, because it's not us who top down decide what are the needs and the gaps. It's actually you in the project who have the best view, especially now that we have a very strong participation of practitioners and in the infra domain of the operators. I think the major knowledge also on what needs to be addressed in the future is within the projects, and we need to use those tools to make sure that we then in the future address real gaps which are still there, and we do not end up in a cycle where we fund the same thing based on political priorities which change very quickly, but somehow we never arrive at the point where we say, okay, this task is solved, at least for the moment. I mean, it can never be solved forever, and especially given the rapid pace of the technological development, probably the time where you can say this solution is now found gets shorter and shorter. But we need to have the more structured approach, and this approach can only come via dialogue between you and us. I would maybe leave it there for the moment because I would prefer to interact maybe when it comes to some questions. Maybe last sentence. What is very important also for the projects which will come and the projects which are running, you will have seen that we have now a very solid policy context for what we do. You will have seen that there is a new proposal for a directive for the resilience of critical entities. And you know that we have the hope that our projects are not only doing excellent research, but they will also be able to give us policy feedback. They will be able to identify what are gaps and needs and how the projects could support the implementation of ongoing policies. So this is why we also invite you, have a look at the CER directive, at the NIS2 directive, at the cybersecurity legislation, and feel free to suggest to us whatever you think could be done better, or where you could facilitate implementation of those policies. So with that, I would maybe say once again, thank you for having invited me, and I look very much forward to discussion now with participants. Thank you, Bruno.
Thank you, Max. Thank you for presenting us the vision of the Commission for the Security Research. And of course, thank you for supporting our project. Okay, now we can go deep into the RESISTO project. And I would like to introduce Bruno Saccomanno from Leonardo Company, that is the coordinator of the project. He will introduce the key ideas steering the RESISTO project. Please, Bruno, mute your microphone. The stage is yours.
Okay, thanks a lot, Federica. Thanks a lot also to Max. And of course, I take this opportunity to remind that we, as a RESISTO project, will provide comments on the draft text of the CER directive, as well as the draft text of the NIS, the second one directive. But speaking about the RESISTO project, I will introduce just an overview. We have a little out of the timetable, so I will be quick, and let me share my presentation. Okay, I hope you can see that.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. As it will be a very quick one. This is the index. I will present the RESISTO, the consortium, the main objectives and implementation status. What is the basic idea inside the project? The components of the main output of the project, the RESISTO platform, and if I have time, we can also speak about the benefits, but I think that we can skip this slide. Okay, let's start. The RESISTO project, the title itself explains very well the main objectives of the RESISTO project: resilience enhancement and risk control platform for communication infrastructure operators. It's a project that started years ago. It's in the last phase. We obtained recently the extension, a 6-month extension due to the pandemic emergency. But of course, because we couldn't access the labs, so we have to postpone some activities. As you can see, the consortium is a big one. 16 partners, included one third party, that APRI, the Agency for the Promotion of the European Research, based in Rome, that organized, make effective this workshop. So thanks to APRI for this. The coordinator is Leonardo, but the scientific technical coordinators is Roma Tre University. As you can see, we have 2 big companies as technology providers, then 6 telco operators that they are the end users also for the platform, 5 research and technical organization, and 4 SMEs that are mainly involved in detectors, innovative detectors inside the platform. Okay. As the main objective is to improve the risk control and resilience of modern communication critical infrastructures, but the key is against a wide variety of cyber physical threats, not just malicious attacks, but also in problems due to natural disaster or even faults. So anything that can disrupt the normal service of the telco operator. So we have to deliver a tool, a platform for optimized decision support. Also, we have also defined a risk resilience management framework. We will speak about that later, and provide also a suite of innovative cyber physical security solutions, mainly in the detection. Implementation status is depicted in the bottom of the slide. As you see, we are in the last phase of the project. We did the system modeling and architecture. All the components have been defined and developed and integrated. Now, exactly in these days, we are running the first round of the pilots. Of course, we have to tune something because we have to adapt the connectivity, but also to tune some correlation rules and so on. But we are on the right path, and we are sure, we are confident to be able to have the good demonstrators in 2-3 months. But which is the main idea inside the project? As you can see, we have divided in 3 boxes. On the bottom, we have the communication infrastructures, the physical resources, the natural resources, also anything that like ancillaries, like air conditioning, that is necessary to provide the good service. On top of the communication infrastructure is the field. We have 2 loops, 2 interlinked loops. The first one, long-term control loop, is an offline activity, and it is performed on a periodic basis, quarterly, for example, or when something important happens. The second one, the short-term control loop, is the runtime component, is the platform itself that works every day, every hour, for the security management of the critical infrastructure. So I go just some words about these components. The long-term control loop is a management process. It's an extension of the risk management process that is defined according to the ISO 31000 standard. but it's extended to include specific steps for resilience. But yes, in the next slide, you can see that this framework is very detailed because we have 9 steps, the context analysis, the system analysis, and so on. But I want to highlight that the output is resilience and cost evaluation, a quantity by means of a big number of resilience indicators. But this framework was developed and defined by Fraunhofer, one of the main partners of the project. And as you know, resilience is a concept that probably this is the better representation because we have performance against the time, and when an event occurs, of course, the performance degrades, but hopefully we can have a recovery. So the behavior of this process includes many indicators, like, for example, the time from the starting of the maximum or loss, and so on. You have to imagine that for each couple of a threat and performance will be computed many indicators. So inside each graph we can have many indicators. So it's like a matrix, but each cell is composed by many different indicators measured and estimated by a specific simulator, CESAR, that was provided by Fraunhofer. Of course, by observing this behavior, you can also identify some problems and then provide some optimization in the critical infrastructure itself. For example, providing a new topology, new components to be added or not, changing some connections in order to improve the graph and so the resilience indicators. As I said before, this is offline platform itself provide a short-term control loop, and sorry, I have to okay, the short-term control loop interfaces directly with the communication infrastructure. In the RESISTO project, we have many test beds provided by the telco operators based in Portugal, Spain, Greece, England, and Italy, of course, and Romania. And is in a cloud environment. It is connected directly to the test bed. So this platform interfaces directly with the communication infrastructure, checks the state of the physical and cyber security, evaluate the impact of and guides the reaction and mitigation. Cyber physical events correlator, flow manager, orchestration control, and so on. But I want to highlight the fact that the simulator together many events and signals from the field. So not just the correlation, but also the management and the measure, the countermeasure will be applied are all together. For example, in the risk predictor, you can see the prediction of the cascading effect of the all events together in an aggregate view. Also, the action taken by workflow manager are action taking into account all the events that are happening in the field. So we think that in this way, you can overcome the typical cultural barriers that separate, in many cases, the physical security teams against the cyber security teams that do not share information and do not share action in the real world. Now we think that with this platform, we can try to have a look in a holistic way the problems of the security, the physical, cyber, but not just the attacks and the malicious attacks, but also problems coming from natural disaster or from simple faults can be viewed together. I'm almost finished, but just to give a look at the cockpit that will be provided to the operator. It is hosted. We have hosted in the two screens layout. In the left one, we can have in the left one, we can have the alarm management area that collects all the active alarms and guides the operator to the right workflow to be implemented. In the bottom, we can have the activity window on top. It's able to extend the geographic view, but we can insert anything in this screen. For example, the detectors on the area. The operator can select the right workflow that is associated to the alarms. Of course, it is implementing the overall before, and the user can see all the operations that have been performed, the tasks that have been automated, the current operation, the completed operation, of course, and all the tasks flow to manage an alarm. When all the tasks are completed, the alarm can be closed. On the right side, in the second screen, we have the risk predictor HMI. It's based on the CCO product developed by Roma Tre University, and it shows a synoptic view of the infrastructure component status and also an impact evaluation in terms of cascade effects. Coupled with this view, there are also information about the behavior of the service against time, so the operator can observe immediately what is the situation if it does anything. And there's also a what if analysis, because the editor can show the situation that takes into account the application of some specific workflow. And close my presentation showing a third step. We have talked about the first long-term control loop. Then we have the short-term control loop. We have an estimation of resilience indicator, real quantity values, many indicators. In the second step, the short-term control loop, we measure really in the field the actual resilience indicator. We can store to the knowledge base. And the third step will be the comparison between the estimated and the measured resilience indicator. And this triggers a new cycle, because if, of course, the difference is too big, there's something wrong, we have to be more accurate in the models, or we have to take some optimized actions to have an improved resilience. The benefit of models, because by these two interlinked cycles, we prevent the service with the cost. We can apply this approach not just to the wireless 4, 5G, the telecommunication networks, cloud systems, and so on, but in general to all critical infrastructures. I think that both the framework from Fraunhofer and, for example, the CISIA Pro from Roma 3 have been applied in the past also to other critical infrastructure. The advancements beyond the state of the art are this application of framework and the interdependency model to the specific communication. That we have defined 9 different use cases and sub-use cases that are piloting in these days, and they will be used to validate the results of the platform. But I'm not going to say nothing more because this is the subject of the next presentation from Stefano Panzieri of Roma 3 University. I hope to have given to you an overview of the project, and thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Bruno, for your presentation that pointed out the main objective addressed by the RESISTO project. To better understand how these ideas can be applied in real-life scenarios, so we would like to present the RESISTO use cases. Professor Panzieri from Roma 3 University will introduce the use cases, giving us also some insight on the implementation. Please, Stefano, unmute your microphone. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Federica. Thank you, Federica. Just wait a second that I try to share my screen. Okay, so I can show you my slides. I hope you can see now. And try to go in presentation. Okay, I hope you can see the first slide. Is okay? Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much, Federica, for the introduction. Thanks to Bruno for its general presentation of RESISTO. As you could see in a slide of Bruno, this is a picture of the short-term control loop. The short-term control loop is very important in the RESISTO platform because it has the task to translate what is happening real time in the field in something that I consider a good information to an operator that has to take some action just to mitigate the risk. And to mitigate the risk, you have to know the risk. You have to understand what is going on and what could go on in maybe a few minutes or something like that. For this reason, together with some very important rules that are also managed by the workflow manager, rules that are related to, for example, a fast answer to what's happening in the field. There is something that could be related to a prediction on what could happen, as I said before, in the next seconds. To be more precise, I will try you to explain a little bit how everything is working. First of all, yes?
The pages provided by the interface have all the same structure. Besides the left sidebar that help us to navigate between the
someone
pages
that is talking
between the different use cases. We have 3 main components. The top bar, the top of
sorry.
There
is some there is a behind. Okay, but it's not important because I was just talking about the structure of the risk predictor. You have seen before the output. The output is a representation of the risk, a map of the risk with elements that could be green or yellow or red according to their state of risk. But what there is behind? Behind there is an interdependency model, a complex interdependency model that try to connect all the elements of the telecommunication infrastructures and try to predict the inoperativity of such elements according to the threats that have been sampled from the field. For example, there is an alert on something that is happening on a router, a denial of service or a broken link or something like that. We can put this information inside our model and then propagate the inoperativity through the network. It's very useful because you can have a picture, a very big picture of what is going on in your system. And this is just to show you the model that is one of the models that are behind the interface, the user interface of the risk predictor. It's a complex Simulink-based scheme with a lot of elements that represents a router, gateway, but also rooms, servers, buildings, and also connections like optical cable or any other kind of connection. But there are also antennas and then end users and whatever you want, whatever could be useful to have a big picture of what you are facing. Using another application that can be that it contains a design system that allows you to put the right behavior inside such blocks. You can build a very large model that will be run and according to events that are happening in the field. Of course, we are working with telecommunications networks, so we try to work with a general situation that is made with some optical backbone nodes, with some routers open with a very fast communication, optical communications that represents, for example, a national backbone. We have tried to model also some POP, level 1 POP, and in general, we could model the network that is generally called metro network, a metropolitan network, that usually covers areas like region or very large cities, for example. And then we also try to model the access networks with the local gateway and all the distribution that could be made of optical elements, optical passive elements. Now this is the trend. For example, for 5G, this is something that is realized currently, but also distribution that could be realized using other protocols, for example, ATM. And so in our models, we have antenna of UMTS, so 4G, for example, but also houses, and it's not difficult for us to model situation in which you have an access network that is composed by a fiber to the cabinet or fiber to the premises or an ADSL instead of an optical connection directly into your house. So this is a very general model that we have used just to model a general case, but for each use case, and we have 9 use cases, we had to take some elements of this general model and just consider them. Of course, each use case, it's a big story. It's something that contains threats, countermeasures, possible breaches, everything that you need to define a real situation. we try to divide all the use case in three categories, in three macro scenarios, according to different consideration that could be done on such use cases. For example, we collected all together all the use cases that are more coping with physical and cyber threats together. So we have, for example, an intrusion and a denial of service, or something that, or we have a cable that could be cut, and maybe someone that is entering into a room where there is a server and it's logging into such a server. The second macro scenario instead is more related to the study of cascading effects. What's happening when you go to affect functionalities of a particular service, how this can be reflected into a service that is commonly delivered by your network. And then the third scenario is more related to the new situation that is actually available with the new 5G telecommunication network. And so it contains something that is more near to software-defined network function virtualization, some IoT. So they are scenarios in which we can find such elements. I don't have much time, but I want to go very fast through different situations, different use cases a little bit, but I'm lucky because two of them will be better presented in next presentation. So for talking about the combined effect of physical and cyber threats, we have four use cases, the first, the second, the sixth, and the fourth. The first two are related to a testbed that has been provided by OTE in Greek. And the use case 6 that will be presented later is something that is related to the Orange Romania testbed. And then British Telecom has put together a testbed in which it is considered the case of the streaming of, for example, a sport event. This is a very difficult case because the streaming of a sport event actually is on several platforms altogether. For what concerning cascading effects, we had the pleasure to work with the team, the Italian team, Telecom Italia Mobile, and we could consider a case talking about cloud storage and how this cloud storage is providing services, for example, to an hospital or to a smart manufacturing site through 5G antenna. Problems on this cloud storage could affect such situation, and in our use cases, we try to simulate this situation. Another very interesting use case is provided by RTV in Spain. RTV is working with Cellnex, if I well remember. And it's a maritime example in which we go to see how remote sites that are controlling antennas that are connecting the ground to the sea, so to boats, could be affected both physically and cyber. Now, about future communication, we have later a presentation from Altis Lab, so you will see how the slicing connected to the 5G could be represented in a use case and could be helped with the RESISTO platform. I don't have much time. I see my clock is telling me that I have more or less 3 minutes. So maybe I have just the possibility to show you how we are working on a scenario. And I choose to show you a little bit the scenario that has been provided by OTE. And you can see here, this is a sketch of the laboratory elements, facilities that they are working with in this moment. There are several routers and there are several servers providing some services. The representation, okay, this is the connection picture, but the network on the left is what we can simulate, the portion of the telecommunication network that we can simulate using such laboratory. As you can see, there are two optical backbone nodes, there are two POP1, there is one POP2, some other gateways, and an access networks that is based on one alt here and on another multiplexer that is an Alcatel-Lucent. This situation can be easily simulated in such facility, and we have tried to understand how to cope with two subcases. One is the use case one, sorry, in which we have a physical attack and that is carried on using an unmanned aerial vehicle, and there is also an access by an authorized person into the building. The second use case is again a physical attack to the premises of the antenna provided by OTE, and in another scenario there is a natural disaster. Now, all these attacks has been simulated and put into this scheme. I can show you maybe, yes, I think that you can see now, this is the Simulink. So this is the real simulator behind the risk predictor. And you can see here, this yellow box represents the building that we are simulating within the OTE scenario. And there is a block that is representing building. There is another block that is representing a room. Here there is another room. Into these two rooms, we supposed to have, for example, two servers. One that is connected to all the devices that control physical accesses, and one that is connected to all the security camera. The other server here is something that is related to the core services of 5G, telecommunication network. So we have in this building a representation of more or less all the cyber and physical services that have to be managed in a building that is containing a POP1 usually. Then we have all the router and gateway that you have seen in the pictures in the picture before. And here in the bottom, there are the end users that in this case, there are two antennas. These two boxes represent some mobile system. Of course, the access network is represented by this alt and this passive splitter and two ONU that are connected to the antenna. This is a general situation, a very common situation. We have also another box here that is representing, for example, two televisions. So it's representing two apartments with people looking to streaming, and the source of the streaming should be here. In fact, we're supposed to have a camera here, a streamer, and that the streamer is connected to another gateway like this one that will provide to the network the stream that will be connected. So now if I double click on one of such elements, I can go to see the behavior that is programmed in this element, and all the programs allows us to put out of order some of the all the elements that you see. So, for example, we can simulate an access to physical access to this room. We can simulate a login to this server or a login to this other server. We can simulate a denial server, a man in the middle, any kind of cyber attack that are described inside these elements, and that, of course, produce an inoperativity, eventually partial inoperativity of such services. The propagation of this inoperativity can reach the final user, and we can measure the level of the quality of service, at the end user, and say, okay, there is maybe a problem on the end user. Okay, dear operator, you must try to counteract this, maybe reconfiguring the rate or moving some services from one server to another one. Just one last slide, maybe, to show you the use case of TIM, in which we have two clouds. One connected, for example, to the city of Rome, one in the city of Milan. We suppose that all the services that are provided to this hospital are located in this cloud. But once we have an event that related to a possible attack to this cloud, of course, we must have all the required sensors. The platform resistor can understand this, and then can command to the manager that able to relocate all the services to transfer the critical services to the other cloud, the one in Milan, and so continue to offer the services to the hospital. So the RESISTO platform can be used in several ways, just to decide the best mitigation strategy to counteract more or less any kind of attack, the physical or cyber or both together, if possible. Dear Federica, I think that I can stop here. I consumed all my 15 minutes, and I will stop my presentation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Stefano, for giving this complete overview on the project. Stefano is right. We are a bit late with respect to our schedule. So we need to cut the first virtual coffee break, and maybe also the second one, just to save the minutes and be in time. So we are going to start directly the first open session of the workshop. In this section, we would like to discuss the telecom security state of the art versus the RESISTO solution. To this aim, we will introduce in depth two use cases, and then we discuss the approaches commonly used nowadays and the advanced solutions proposed in RESISTO. So the two use cases will be presented by Johan Constantin from Orange and Jorge Capirinha from Altis Lab. Johan, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Federica. I do have some, now I can share. I thought I had some issues with the share applet. Could you please confirm that you can see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Great. I'll do my best to be brief with this presentation since we're running late. It's only 5 slides, I think. I'm going to briefly go over our use case and then run hopefully a very on the point comparison between what is the current state of the art when it comes to cyber security detection and response orchestration and physical security versus the ambitions of Resisto and what we've achieved so far. Our use case is pretty much centered around our testbed and our facility. We do our best to replicate our live networks, our production networks in our testbeds, and the Resisto testbeds mimics some of the functionality of our live production networks, both the 4G networks and the fixed networks. It includes all the detection and all the actuators that are required for our use case to properly be validated with Resisto. So this is a particularity of our use case as opposed to some of the other partners. We handle all the detection of the incidents, of the events in our testbed, and we simply send the detection alerts to Resisto. Our testbed is in principle composed of network equipment like performance routers, both mobile and B2B, security equipment like next-gen firewalls with IDS and IPS capability, and DDoS detection, of course, and a mobile network infrastructure, and some servers that will simulate our cloud infrastructure. Our cloud infrastructure is essential to our use case, as it will host some of the instances that our B2B customers are going to use. Our use case is part of macro scenario 2, and it impacts other use cases in macro scenario 1. The title is Cyber and Physical Protection of the Network and the Network Elements Mechanism used for services that impact users. And we will focus on two scenarios during the validation of Resisto. In the first one, we will try to simulate a DDoS attack on some of the cloud components that are accessible at internet services to our B2B and B2C customers, and a simultaneous fiber cut between our two MSCs. Our two MSCs in the testbed mimic the MSC deployment in our live network. So they are geographically separated, isolated, but they are connected by this backbone of several fiber interconnects. The testbed will detect, so the equipment will detect each of the isolated incidents, the DDoS and the fiber cut. For the network equipment, it will actually be a port down situation, not necessarily a fiber cut. The network equipment doesn't have the capacity to understand that a fiber cable has been literally cut at some point on the connectivity. So it will send these specific messages to Resisto, a DDoS detection, and then a port down on one of our networks. The impact will be visible on our voice and data services. So these are critical services that are being offered to both B2B and B2C customers, but we are trying to isolate two specific customers, and those are B2B customers. OTE is one of them. So they are a telecommunication operator that uses some of our cloud infrastructure to host some of their services, specifically some own cloud instances and a SIP server for voice communications. And SNCF, which is a local railway operator, so a transport operator in Romania, which is, and they are critical infrastructure as defined by the NIS directive. And we will measure the impact on these services. In our second scenario, we are going to have a similar layout, but we are going to try to simulate two other types of incidents. A cybersecurity incident related to a malicious access to a router and a routing table poisoning that will happen shortly after somebody a network administrator of Orange will physically enter one of our data centers. So the scenario is that this bad actor will use their badge to validate and open a door to one of our secure network locations, secure data centers, and then we'll log into the the management part of one of our routers and perform some routing table changes that will immediately affect the way that the communications happen between some of our customers, OT and SNCF, and the services that we are providing for them. The specific services that we are providing for OTE in these scenarios are voice services. We are hosting a SIP server for them in our cloud infrastructure, which they can access in order to have voice communications available, and a server that hosts, which they use for collaborative work and in order to publish documents and other information to their colleagues and maybe even their own B2B or B2C customers. For SNCF, we are hosting in our cloud infrastructure some of the most important services that they run. We are hosting their ticketing service. So this is a web service that allows end users, their customers to purchase tickets for the trains. We are hosting their fleet management solution, which allows them to actively manage the way that their trains are formed and literally used from an operational perspective. So this is a very important part of their operations center. And we are hosting an internal ticketing service for them, something like a Jira instance. Well, I kind of explained the scenarios for you, but I want to focus in this slide on the impacted users and the Resisto added value, the Resisto added value of running this specific test scenarios. So before the incident, we expect that Resisto has the capacity to monitor KPIs and alarms which are sent from our infrastructure and present some form of situation awareness. So this is the part of the test where everything is okay. We have all the indicators in the green, we have all the KPIs in the green. And then during the incident, when we start pushing alerts from our testbed via VPN to the Resisto correlator, we expect that Resisto will be able to parse those messages, correlate the incidents, evaluate the impact, and run mitigation actions. And we have a post-incident component. That's the reporting and the append to the long-term control loop of all the lessons learned from during the incident. We expect to use during the testing the CCR Pro component for the impact evaluation and the incident correlation, and of course the output for the situation awareness. The risk predictor and the correlator, these are the components that are going to be at the receiving end of our messages workflow. And the risk predictor should be able to better present us with an updated situation awareness and an updated impact evaluation of the events, both the physical and the cybersecurity events that have happened in the testbed. And then we are going to access all this information in the cockpit, where we should be presented with a mitigation or orchestration flow. In our case, the orchestration is not done with actual actuation, so the orchestrator will not command some state changes on our equipment, but it will present us with a playbook, a workflow for remediation. And now, speaking to the actual subject of this panel, RESISTO versus state-of-the-art. Our focus for state-of-the-art is a CM 3.0 deployment with some form of PSIM, with some form of physical security monitoring, incident monitoring. This is the state-of-the-art technology that most telcos are able to access right now. The access to this technology should happen in a NOC or SOC type of environment, so you have human operators. And if we run this comparative type of brief analysis that I'm presenting right here, we can see that there are some features that RESISTO is able to perform that the current state-of-the-art, in which the current state-of-the-art is limited. The first one is a correlation of physical security in cyber threats. RESISTO has this native capability to run these correlations, but the current state-of-the-art is severely limited by the existing integrations. So most CM vendors will have extensive integrations with some other vendors, some other platforms, but the integrations themselves are still subject to future customization and development. So this is a very important asset for us, a very important feature that RESISTO has, which RESISTO offers natively. And then you have risk prediction and impact assessment. So the next gen CM or the current gen CM are great at running impact assessment and risk prediction, but solely on cybersecurity threats that are mostly coming from detectors on endpoints and with some limited capability in the network area. The impact assessment and risk prediction capabilities for events triggered both in the cyber and physical realm is very limited in the current state of the art. So again, a very good point for RESISTO here. Then the resilience monitoring. This is a feature that I haven't yet been able to find in any current state-of-the-art products, be it CM or PSIM. So we don't necessarily have a very good situational awareness when it comes to resilience indicators with the current state-of-the-art and next gen, but we do have this in RESISTO natively. And then the mitigation orchestration capabilities are limited in current state-of-the-art to the SOAR capabilities. Usually, current gen CMs work well with the current gen SOAR, so that's security orchestration. But the limitation comes from the limited capacity of the CM to integrate to integrate and actually understand and correlate physical incidents and correlate them with cybersecurity incidents. So to this point, I do think that the ambitions of RESISTO will provide beneficial in order to better differentiate from current state-of-the-art deployments in telcos, for telcos. And we do have some winning points here specifically, and especially in resilience monitoring, curve monitoring, and situation awareness. I think, yes, this is all the slides that I have prepared for today. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm not sure if we're supposed to have a Q&A right now. I guess it's after the next presentation,
yes,
but I'm
available.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Jon, for your presentation. And Jorge, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Federica. Let me try to share my slides. Okay, do you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so I will try to be brief, just to to give an overview of the main points about the 5G use case, network response to a security breach. So first of all, before delving into the use case, it's good to say a few words about 5G. It's important to note that from many points of view, 5G is really much more than an incremental evolution from previous mobile technology generations. And 5G is strongly associated with major paradigm changes, like things like edge computing, network slicing, network automation, network programmability, network elasticity. So things that, strictly speaking, are not a result of 5G, but it's undeniable that 5G will represent the main trigger, the main catalyst. And all of these changes have a deep impact on how networks are managed, operated, and controlled, and specifically how network resilience and security can be handled. So there are, of course, new tools, as we will see in the next few slides, but also new challenges. And so in this context, RESISTO is a promising solution to provide an intelligent layer that provide the intelligence to leverage this new environment from a security, from a resilience, a network resilience scenario. Okay, so this last use case hopefully will demonstrate and validate and evaluate the value of RESISTO in a 5G environment in relation to network failures and security threats. So this slide basically shows the main aspects of the use case. So first of all, one of the trends of 5G, not only 5G, but I would say in general, the telecom world, let's say, is the trend to have a proliferation of edge points of presence. This is mainly related to the need to use edge computing. And so the network will become a lot more distributed than before. And so the starting point for this use case is exactly a scenario where we have an edge computing setup. So at the beginning, let's say at the starting point, we have traffic. If you look at this picture on the right, traffic going from the user traffic going from this green G-node B to edge pop A. And then a security incident is supposed to happen and in edge pop A, and then the traffic and the resources are supposed to be relocated to edge pop B. So the basic goal of the basic storyline, let's say, of the use case is to anticipate a security incident in the network edge through 3 incremental activation steps. So as a function of the probability of a failure measured by a certain probability number. So we define 3 different stages: preparation phase, activation phase, and service migration phase, depending on the likelihood of this incident. So first, we instantiate new virtual resources. Second, we activate those resources. And third, we perform the handover, the switch from HPOP A to HPOP B. So this is a case, a typical case where we make use of things that are not possible in previous, let's say, technology generations. We are using virtualization. We are using the possibility to instantiate network resources on demand. Another point that is very important to note is that we are making use of network slicing, which is a key ingredient of the use case. The communication service is supported by a network slice, which is represented by this gray area in the picture on the right. And the network slice is composed by a number of so-called network slice subnets, which are components that can be created on demand and instantiated and stopped if necessary, and moved. This is a great way of taking advantage of the possibilities put forward by virtualization and slicing, and in a security-related use case. Okay, so this is the basic goal of the use case. Let's see the end-to-end view is something that, well, this is in this slide we represents the end-to-end view. Basically, we have three main building blocks, let's say. On the left-hand side, we have a machine learning predictive model or predictive machine learning pipeline, which is making use of a data set provided by MEO, which is the brand name for Altice for fixed and mobile services in Portugal. So we are using a massive amount of data to produce a prediction of specific security incidents. And so we are feeding the RESISTO platform not with, let's say, data from sensors as most of the other use cases in RESISTO, but in this case, we are feeding the RESISTO platform with alarms that indicate a certain probability of a security event taking place. So, and then, of course, RESISTO is supposed to take actions according to the infrastructure and according to the level of severity of the alarm. And so we have the RESISTO system doing, let's say, the main domain control of the use case. And then we have on the right-hand side, the third component, which is our 5G testbed infrastructure on which activation is going to take place. And the let's say the medium, the connection between RESISTO and the 5G testbed is through the Sonata orchestrator that basically is a NFV orchestrator, which is supposed to deploy the required resources and perform the appropriate actions as a result of a specific request from the RESISTO platform. Yeah, so this is the basic overview of the use case. Okay, so this is the Altice Labs 5G testbed. So this is, let's say, a zoom on the, let's say, on the right bottom of this figure. Basically, we are using the 5G testbed is using is a full end-to-end 5G network using ASOX technology for the radio access part, for the radio units, and for the fronthaul and backhaul segments. We are using a 5G core provided by Fraunhofer Focus, and we are using Sonata as an FV orchestrator. Yeah, so this is something that is being also used in the scope of other projects, mainly 5G BINI, for example. It is important to note that the radio access part, since at the moment we have a single radio unit, we are using emulated GNOBs and UEs provided by Fraunhofer Focus as components of Open 5G Core. Yeah, but other than that, from a functional point of view, everything is running as if we are using radio units. So later on, if we have multiple available radio units, we can use real radio units in the use case. But of course, the radio is not really the main focus of the use case. So this is probably a minor point. Okay, and then this is my last slide. So the value of Resisto for 5G and security, 5G resilience and security. So I would say I would divide I try to list a number of advantages of good point or features that are provided by Resisto. I would separate a little bit things that are, let's say, general to any use case, basically. So things like impact assessment, risk prediction that have been presented before. And also, in the case of 5G, I would highlight things like the creation and placement and activation of virtual resources, because this is something that is shown in this use case and proves the usefulness and the value of Resisto in a 5G environment. Of course, then we have things like the reduction of human intervention that is needed to operate and maintain the network infrastructure in situations of security incidents, or the monitoring that is provided by Resisto or HMI. Those things like probably are common to the other use cases. And with that, I finish my presentation. I apologize because my video camera is not working. I don't know why, but the important thing is that you saw the slides. So, okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Jorge, for your presentation. We can now start the open session. We are late, as you may know. So this open session will last only 10 minutes. And I would like to introduce two experts that will help us in animating the discussion. Chiara Foglietta from Roma Tre University and Luca Paramondi from Campus Biomedico. Just to break the ice, I think that Luca has a couple of questions for the audience and, of course, the panelists.
Thank you, Federica. I think that in the macro scenario, which involves more than a single infrastructure, for example, the railway and the telecommunication infrastructure, or hospital and telecommunication infrastructure are particularly interesting. And this scenario are interesting because physical force or other kind of threats, for example, cyber threats, could compromise multiple infrastructures due to a sort of domino effect. So my question is if it's possible to identify a correlation among different effects due to the same threats. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. I'm Chiara Foglietta. Yeah. One of the components of the Resisto architecture is the correlator. Its main aim is to correlate different type of false or cyber attack. So first of all, this is the main aim of these components. And then we can correlate on several aspects. First of all, the timestamp. So if several events happen in a short time slot, obviously there could be some correlation. And then we can correlate also on where we acquire those information. So if they are related or more or less the same proximity. this could be another option. For example, in the Euro testbed, one of the scenarios was, for example, that one person enter into a room where there are some server, and then we can see that there are some login on this server. So in this case, there is a correlation between events that are different type. One is the physical, so people that enter in some rooms, and then the tentative to log in to some server. So in this case, obviously, we can correlate those information. This information is obviously displayed to the operator, so the operator knows that there are maybe correlated events. And then we can propagate also those correlated information, so we can assess the impact on the system of different type of information. So obviously, the system then can react in different ways because it depends strongly on which kind of use case we are thinking about. But then obviously we can have some reaction for different kind of elements. As Jon described, the classical CM of the system is focalized to one kind, so for cyber attack or for physical perimetral events. In this case, the resistor try to merge both in an effective way, so trying to improve the awareness of the operator.
Yes, and probably I think this merging process is also the basis for the applicability of countermeasures to cyber threats or critical fault in order to also isolate part of the system, probably by cut some critical links between the two different systems in distributed system, complex system, and so on.
Yes, exactly. In fact, when we think about countermeasure, one of the main problem is the correlation. So if we don't have Resisto, the operator work on the single events and then try to react to the single events. Usually those events are moving, are sent to different control room. So there are people that are mainly devoted to the perimeter security, and then there are the SOC or the cyber control people. So yes, the correlation tries also to react to the single main events. So obviously in this case, you have to counteract both, so for both the cyber but also the physical. But in some other events, we can have a physical, a cyber attack that then can cause a physical event. So in this case, you can just react to the cyber events to protect also the physical system. So in this case, for example, the countermeasure, it's important if we are able to understand which is the real starting point, the real cause in the system. Then on the other side, obviously, the consequences can also happen like in the railway in different infrastructure. So in this case, it's very important to protect, for example, telecommunication, because it's the first part where we can have cyber incidents. So this is very, very important.
Okay, thank you, Chiara. I have just another short question about the presentation of Jorge Caravigna. Probably in the future, 5G networks will be part of critical infrastructure. So it is possible to define machine learning approaches for self-configuration or self-optimization in order to enable autonomous network management.
Yeah, sure. I think that machine learning will play a fundamental role in a 5G environment, especially taking into account the virtualization of the infrastructure and things like network slicing, because actually the traditional methods to handle network management and to handle security incidents is something that is not compatible, in my opinion, with the complexity of a virtualization-based network, especially taking into account the fact that the network, the functionality of the network is now detached from the infrastructure. So this raises a number of new possibilities and new opportunities that actually the use case is intended to show, but also a number of challenges and I think a new level of complexity. So I think machine learning will play a fundamental role in this context. I think it will be almost a requirement because the traditional, let's say, human-based approaches will not be realistic anymore, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I agree. Machine learning approaches are data-driven approaches, and in this kind of infrastructure, for example, communication infrastructure, we have a lot of data. So probably the machine learning is the key. Yes, thank you.
Is there other questions from the audience? Remember, you can raise your hands and your microphone will be unmuted. Or you can drop your question, of course, in the chat. Okay, if we do not have any other question from the panelists, I would like to thank again all the panelists and the experts that animate this first open session. And I would like to move to the second open session that will concern about real market scenarios. Federico Frosali and Claudio Becchetti, both from Leonardo Companies, will introduce this open session, and then we'll openly discuss some issue related with the real market scenarios. So Federico and Claudio, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Federica. So now it's time for the marketing part, let me say. So I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, let's see. Okay, here it is. Please confirm that you can see my screen. Okay.
Yes,
good.
Now we can.
Okay, so we actually have split this part in two streams. The first is about business planning and how to properly market the RESISTO framework. So a few words about the market. The security and safety market, the solution market, is actually a huge market. The overall estimation is about 400 billion over the 2019-2023 period, with a compound average growth rate around 80%, 7% in the European area. When it comes to the specific segment of critical infrastructure protection, we found out that this segment is actually the most important segment, the most relevant one within the security and safety market, with a consistent compound average growth rate of 8% over the next 3 to 4 years. In this segment, in the medium and long term, we see as a main market driver the convergence between physical and cyber security solutions as addressed by RESISTO. In the analysis of this market, we have found that the main market drivers are essentially the implementation of unified security platforms that provide a complete security picture and a complete consistent management framework, and integrated security governance and cybersecurity governance solutions, the need for control rooms that integrate legacy technologies, but at the same time are able to leverage on new challenges provided by the technological evolutions, and the need for high-speed communications in order to improve effectiveness and efficiency of response. Given these, Given these market drivers, actually, we in the recent times, two new, let me say, factors have emerged that may impact deeply on the market for RESISTO, being those 5G and, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. About 5G, this is pretty clear that in the field of telecommunications, 5G is, let me say, the upcoming evolution and revolution. The 5G networks deployment has already started, but I think that the full potential of 5G technology actually will be developed in the next 2 to 3 years. The paradigm of network as a service is actually something that can be really a market changer here. But at the same time, the evolution towards 5G comes also with some challenges, some of them totally unexpected. One is related to the fact that with the development of 5G, also concerns related to the impact, negative impact on the health of population has also raised. In recent times, this has been made even more relevant by the link that some people have established between the diffusion of 5G technology and the spike of the COVID-19 pandemic. At the same time, 5G represents a challenge also in terms of national security, because critical data will be shared over 5G commercial networks, and there have been raising concerns about cybersecurity of 5G with the increasing use of software at each layer of the network. The European Commission has put under the radar the challenges, the threats related to the development of 5G, so has been actively working on this and providing a toolbox for security a toolbox for security of 5G, outlining strategic measures and technical measures that, of course, RESISTO has to deal with. The other factor impacting the market for RESISTO is also the COVID-19. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has been a burst for the market because of the general contraction that has produced over GDP of national GDPs across the world, with a notable exception of China. This contraction, of course, may impact on public spending and utility spending. So this may reduce the market size for RESISTO, but at the same time, COVID-19 pandemic effects may also produce a boost effect in terms of the strong boost to digitalization with acceleration of fundamental shifts towards teleservice and increased use of telework and online collaboration tools that represent a real boost for the market of telco operators. So let me say, COVID-19 can be at the same time a bad and a good news for the market for the RESISTO platform. For what concerns the business model and the go-to-market, we may say that we identify as main target users for the RESISTO platform the authorities in charge of critical infrastructure, safety and security management, and of course the CI managers themselves. In terms of potential service offerings, we have identified actually 3 types of service offerings. The first, more related to consultancy services that encompasses design, supervision, modeling, and simulation. And so, let me say, more related to the development of Fraunhofer and the CISIA Pro tool from Roma 3. The second potential service offering is more related to the technology providers, the system integrations provider, both in terms of turnkey solutions for the resilience of telco operator networks, but also in terms of security and resilience as a network. The third area is the training, certification, maintenance assistance, and emergency management in general terms. With reference to those potential service offerings, the business models that we have been identifying so far are the system integrator business model that, of course, is mainly addressed by large enterprises like Leonardo, Ericsson within the RESISTO consortium. The resilience as a service business model that, of course, once again, may be a model of interest for the telco operators, delivering those resilience as a service business model as part of the security managed services model and the service business model that may be provided by third party, more related to consultancy service. That said, this was about providing a general framework, but now I would like to hear from the operators and the system integrators in the consortium what's their point of view. Okay, so I would like to place this question to Orange and Mr. Popescu from Orange Romania. I would like to hear from you what's your feeling about the perspective, how Resisto can actually play the difference in this scenario for the telecom operators, both in terms of increasing resilience of your network and at the same time as an opportunity to deliver resilience as a service business model. Mr. Popescu? Yeah. Sorry, maybe he has to unmute.
Oh, yes.
Now, yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Now, yes.
Sorry, I was muted and I was unable to unmute myself.
Okay. Did you hear the question? Or
yeah, sure, absolutely. Well, from the telecom operator perspective, I think the main driver, let's say, to adopt Resisto framework is, and to put it in a nutshell, is to gain network resiliency. And of course, it's not just for the sake of the resiliency itself. It's the interest of any telecom operator to gain competitive advantage over, its competitors. And having, let's say, a strong and robust network, this gives you a competitive advantage. On the second, let's say, another reason would be that we have a responsibility towards our customers. And when I'm referring to customers, I'm mainly referring to B2B customers and some, let's say, companies that are offering essential services. So they come from critical verticals. So we have a responsibility towards these customers to offer them, safe and secure services. Within Orange Business Services, we have what we call the data journey. So we have a set of tools, ITNC tools, especially in Orange Business Services, for which we collect data, we transport data, we storage data, we disseminate data through various services to our customers. And along this journey, data journey, as we call it, we need to have a safe route. So cybersecurity comes as an umbrella along all these services. And I think it's very important to, to be able to offer secure services to our customers. What I would, expect from Resisto framework would be to give me that resilience. And when it comes to resilience, this should be gained along, the whole spectrum of the journey. The platform, the framework should be able to present situation awareness before the incidents. It should be able to evaluate the impact and run mitigation actions during the incidents, and be able to report accurately in the phase of post-incidents. Of course, these are desires that every telecom operator is looking for when it comes to adhere to a security framework. And I think these are the main adoption drivers, for any telecom operator when it comes to Resisto framework or to any other platform that might help, gain this network resilience.
Okay, Mr. Popescu, one more question for you. According to you, very, very brief, which are the main gains and the main pains in adoption of the Resisto framework from the telecom operator's perspective?
Well, the main challenges, or I think it's too much to call them barriers, is that, if you want to adhere to this framework or to any other framework, you need a lot of integration. So there is a lot of integration effort in place. And some, companies, some telecom operators might view it as a, let's say, challenge or barrier to adoption. And then, there are questions raised if the framework has the capacity to offer, let's say, above state-of-the-art tools for event correlation. I mean, this is something extremely important for the telecom operators. And I think once you have the confirmation that the tools are the right tools for the event correlation, then this will speed up the adoptions versus other alternatives out there in the market.
Okay, awesome. Very, very interesting perspective. Thank you, Mr. Popescu. Then now I would like to take on the stage Luca Baldini from Ericsson. And I would like to hear for you which you see as opportunity and prospects from the, let me say, large system integrator and technology provider perspective for what concerns the Resisto, and which are, according to you, the most effective actions we may take into an action in order to support the Resisto adoption by the end users across the market.
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me, first of all? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, fine, because I didn't try the audio until now. So it's quite complex question. Let's take it, divide the question at least in 2 points. First of all, I mean, the opportunities. Okay, first of all, clearly the topic of security and cyber security in particular is, I mean, for vendors, for us as a vendor, I mean, is really of primary importance. And then clearly our products are already designed, let's say, for resiliency, for to prevent malicious attack and be resilient as much as possible to malicious attack and disaster and so on. And we also, of course, provide our own solution for that. However, I believe that an approach like Resisto is really could be really complementary in this from this point of view. And okay, I will try to explain why in my opinion. I mean, someone during the presentation already mentioned that the 5G and is really a game changer, and the 5G and beyond, I would say, because many of the business will be in the use cases provided by the verticals, like I don't know, automotive industry and smart industry and smart cities and so on. And I believe all these use cases provided by the verticals have in common that they provide have to provide end-to-end services and putting together many components, like many, I mean, network segments, for example. They have to stitch together a network segment, maybe making use of a concept like logical slicing of the network, and also have to take into account, depending on the vertical, specialized apparatus, like I don't know, for automotive, for example, each car will have its own platform on board, or if we have to have to do with drones, for example, have their own platform and so on. So I think we are in front of very complex scenarios, putting together different network segments, sometimes different providers of network and different operators in some cases, in order to build end-to-end service for the final customer, let's say. So coming back to Resist, I believe that we definitely need some, or the market, let's say, definitely need some platform to for risk control and for situation awareness that is able to provide a sort of unique cockpit that is able to handle this end-to-end service. And I also would say that, I mean, in order to be, let's say, successful on the market, I would say that the characteristics of this platform should be at least three main characteristics, I would say. It should be easy to deploy, better if it's, like we say today, is an as a service security platform. Should be flexible and easy to integrate, because for each use case of the verticals, probably we need something special because of the nature of the verticals. And as I said, I mean, it should be able to to provide, I mean, this unique the unique, let's say, interface, unique cockpit, able to capture the risk and the actions on the probably threat. So that's, I think that if Resisto will be able to, or the technology of Resisto will be able in the future to meet this these characteristics, I think it could be a successful product, I mean, in the market.
Okay, thank you, Luca, for this insight. I think it's very interesting to hear which may be the drivers for Resisto as a product or as a service, let me say. About the last question, what do you think can be really the best way to go for Resisto to come to the market? You know that we have these verticals, these experimentations within the project. Do you think this is enough? We should do more? I'm pretty curious to hear from you.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, of course, this market is about the verticals and so on, and slicing and is still, I mean, not mature enough. I mean, we are, but still, I think in this phase we have many trials and many proof of concept that we are in cooperation with important operators. So, for example, for smart manufacturing and industry 4.0 with the Comau in Turin, where we have evolved a team, for example, as operator. We have something in another important, just talking about Italy, about another important trial in the for 5G port of the future, how it's called, in Livorno, where we are automating with 5G, thank you to 5G slicing, I mean, the operation in the port. And so the logistics and the automation. We have other trial, more advanced, probably at the advanced stage. For example, in Germany with a media company like Sky, that is broadcasting sport events by wireless video cameras and drones, and then by 5G network and so on. So I mean, all these, as I said, these are still trials, are not yet commercial contract, because I mean, probably we are in the early stage, and next year they will probably develop. And so I think that every one of this trial could be a good opportunity to get in contact with customers and propose and provide, I mean, one solution for risk analysis. I mean, I think it's a good. Yeah, there are many. There are probably
there are many opportunities
out there. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Luca. I think at the same time that it will be clearer to the Resisto consortium how to market the Resisto as a service as the 5G market also develops and the telco operators develop their offering in these markets, especially in the business-to-business segment. So for sure it will be clearer how resilience can be sold as part of a service offering within 5G in the coming years. Do you agree? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So, okay. Thank you.
The mic was. Yes, I think you get to the point. I mean, as you said, I mean, now that the customer probably is, we are talking about business to business segment. Yes, I agree, because I mean, at the end, who will be responsible to provide this service to the end user? Probably the operator or some other
system
service
integrator
company.
like you or Leonardo.
Exactly. This is something to probably that has to be yet. I mean, we will see in the next years.
Okay, thank you very much, Luca. Now I think it's time to go deeper on a vertical market that is one that will be introduced by my colleague Claudio Becchetti, that is the mission critical market, where we can provide pretty practical examples of RESISTO adoption. So Claudio, I'll leave the stage to you. I'll run the slides for you, okay?
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I'm here. I guess that you can hear me. Okay, perfect. So I will start to tell you a story related to Broadway. Broadway is a specific project. I will tell you what it is. Basically, we were in a room, plenty of people, and there were people from the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Public Safety, and Emergency Relief. They were officers from this organization that were analyzing, examining our activity. And then we started to talk about RESISTO. We said, well, in our project, we'd like to introduce RESISTO as a security tool, as a security framework for Broadway. Broadway is a project where we create the new standard of communication for public safety and disaster relief. And this, I must say that these people were very, very interested. I would say that the most the interest was the highest with respect to the other topics. I wondered then, after this kind of exam, I wondered why there was so much an interest by the end users. The problem is this. I don't know how many people know what is going on in the PPDR market. Basically, public safety organizations are going to do a very big quantum leap, let's say. They want to leave the protected communication they have, the dedicated communication network they had basically on Tetra and other standards, and they want to leverage commercial networks, mobile networks, and here there is a problem, of course, because if you want to go with data, let's say from civil for security service, for example, for police, on a public network, then there is a problem of security. And if you want to use this kind of networks for emergency relief, then there are other problems, because, for example, in fire, probably the commercial network will go down very quickly. So the problem is that we need something. They need something to make the public commercial mobile network more safe and more secure, more safe from emergency issues, more secure from attacks, from cyber attacks. And that's why they were very interested in RESISTO, because basically, at least on the slide, they feel that it addressed their problem of security and safety. Let's focus on mission critical communication. As you see in this slide, it's a very, very big market, very big. It's a big market, 26 billion euros by 2025, because basically all the private networks will be replaced sometime will be replaced by this commercial-based network. And so we expect to do this 26 billion, and with quite a good CAGR that is 10% growth. What is Broadway? What is happening? Federico, if you can change the slide, the new one. Okay, what is going to go on? The let's say the European or the European Public Protection Disaster Relief Organization said, okay, we have two basic three big experiments. One is in US with FirstNet, one other is in Korea, and the other one is in UK. But UK, well, it was a big problem, not so good. So we can. As in Europe, we can merge each other. We can create a project as a Ministry of Interiors, and in this project we created the new standards with the requirement that we want. They basically create a procurement board, 11 Ministry of Interior, and they add other 46 end users. That is again public safety and disaster relief. And they started, if you can go in the next slide, they started with this project in 2006, 2007, and step by step they're going to the pilot. Next year we will have the project on the field, and after that time we will have a new standard that will be used, let's say, across Europe. But basically, it's it's the widest standard in terms of end user cooperating on it, basically on PPDR. So it's something really relevant. Maybe on information streams, it's not so noted, but it's quite a big, in my opinion, it's a big standard. Here there is the what and the why. The problem for this standard is that basically they had a big problem in public protection. They have consider, for example, the border between Holland and Belgium. And the problem is that there were cars with thieves. They went from Belgium, they crossed the border at Holland. Police forces from Belgium, they chased them, but then going in Holland, they were not able to talk. And so the strange issue is that the cars from the thieves, they started to bang, and to the Belgian police, it seems a joke, but it's real. And so they said, okay, we have to at least be able to call wherever we are with the police forces that we have in places in the other countries. That's why they started to do this kind of project. And they started, and let's say it's not a project only of technology, it's also a project of governance, it's a project of procedures. So it's a complete project of standard that is over technology itself. And again, the part of security, the part of safety is really, really relevant. I hope you understand the why of this stuff. I would not go in additional detail. I would go with the questions to the other colleagues from Leonardo and Orange. Just only to say that this kind of Broadway RESISTO will have some 20 million end user, will cover, let's say, all Europe's in terms of PPDR. And the tenders related to this kind of new networks are going to go in this month. For example, Orange is really involved in the new network in France, but there are other networks in Finland, in Romania, and other places. Basically, all European countries will have to do this stuff, this change. So I will go into the questions. I guess there is Angelo Benvenuto who is connected. So I would like to ask to him some, Angelo is inside market, and it works on mission critical market since a long time. So I'd like to ask him the needs and the challenge in light of this broadband revolution, the mission critical market. Just to give the market and which are the author, the users in this market, and what it means MNO, MVNO, and so on. Angelo, it's up to you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I guess that you can hear me. That reliability and resiliency of networks is a problem that is very felt by end users, especially talking about the broader project that Claudio was mentioning before. There are some concerns about the reliability of this pan-European network. So everything that is addressing the reliability and the possibility to ensure the service is more than welcome by end users, and maybe let's say one key issue for the service provider being their system integrators or telco operators. So take that. I'd highlight another point. We are talking about a sort of hybrid security that is mixing to some extent cybersecurity and physical security. In the world of PPDR network, there is another hybrid concept. For sure, in a mid to long term future, the network will be broadband based on 4G and 5G. But now, the hybrid network model concept that is made by narrowband network integrated to some extent with the broadband network is maybe the dominant model, at least in the real implementation all over the world. And we still think about the first net that will foresee the usage of P25 and LTE, but also some other networks, some other national networks such as Germany, France, are not getting completely rid of narrowband. There is a transition foreseen, but to now there is also a narrowband component that is still in the place. So a good challenge for who is going to offer resiliency services also to take in account the narrowband component and the narrowband resiliency. That's if in past was to some extent segregated using proprietary protocol and so on, not the case. The core network of narrowband network is typically based on virtualized systems on servers, and there is some sort of exposition to the public network, at least for the some portion that could be attacked by cyber criminals. Not to mention in the physical attacks to infrastructure, masts, and fibers, and so on, that has been taken into account in this morning. So I guess that there is a lot of potential for for a project like RESISTO to be delivered in a successful way. Because it is addressing one of the key needs of the PPDR infrastructures, and is covering one of the main concerns that will allow the PPDR community to make the move toward broadband with, let's say, a more positive attitude. Of course, and this is a message for telco operator and maybe also MVNO, the resiliency of, let's say, an infrastructure that will be shared, if not completely public, but however, that will be a great component of, let's say, shared networks. It has to be carefully protected and have to give the message and the sensation that it's reliable as were reliable the fully private infrastructure of the past generation, and addressing the cyber physical security of the network could be, let's say, an important step to gain this confidence and this reliability for the reliability for end users.
Thank you, Angelo. And another question. There is Amico. As always, but in these times, it's worse for customers to open the wallet, give the money is always a problem and a nightmare, of course. So the question is, in your opinion, who is the customer who will, let's say, pay these extra services and why, which is the conditions, in your opinion, would create the trigger so that the customer will pay for these extra Resisto services on its service, on its yes, on its service.
Again, if we are talking about PPDR network, the elected customer are MOI, so our government to some extent, because police forces and also first responders in general are not private companies, but are extensions of governments of individual nations. So we have to think if this security is something that they are willing to pay for, or if it's a requirement that they will strongly ask to service provider, and so these kind of expenses have to be borne to some extent by service provider, whether it be mobile vehicle network operators or let's say telco operators or system integrators as well. I think that the cost of increased resiliency will be to some extent, let's say, transferred to the end users in some amount, if not completely left on the burden of the end users. It could be, let's say, an element to ease the service migration toward from the existing narrowband to let's say shared broadband. But since this kind of transition is already to some extent accepted, and it will be taken as certain with the only possibility of be shifted on time depending on the investments and so on. I guess that to some extent also this kind of investment and this kind of requirement should have to be modulated in order to let's say be let's say shared in some extent between who is taking the risk of enterprise, and so who is going to offer the service, and who is benefiting from the services, and so end users and government. That sort of modulation will also to take into account the model of the network, and so the composition of let's say private portion that in line of principle should be more secure rather than the share component that could be more prone to attacks, at least from the cyber domain point of view.
Okay, thank you, Angelo. I will go to Orange to ask them just a couple of questions. I did lots of questions to them, just to give some extent of the discussion. I just wanted to ask for them to Orange if they addressed this point of security of and safety for public protection networks, and if yes, how they did it, if it was something requested by the end users, or they for them they give this kind of services just let's say for grant. I give the floor to Orange.
Claudio, don't have a question by the participant.
Pardon? Pardon? I didn't catch your point. Well, if I ask, so if there are no other questions, I just will ask from the floor. I will ask always to Angelo to give me a conclusion on this point. If up to his knowledge, there is the MNO are implementing such security, or they want to implement a security net framework that is more with respect to what they have in commercial network. And if Angelo has seen this kind of implementation in the tenders that they are going to go in Europe, I will conclude in this way. Angelo?
Yeah, I guess that the idea of, let's say, a cyber physical security should be appealing also for MNO that could, let's say, increase their position and their status of provider for essential services. I guess that to some extent, also the NIS directive, even if it is taking into account the cyber world, could be to some extent, let's say, an additional requirement to this resiliency and the security of such network infrastructure that are categorized as essential services in the country. So in this extent, everything is going to increase the resiliency of such vital infrastructure should be welcomed. And so I guess that the cyber physical requirement could be inserted even in public tenders and so on. But as far as I know, we are at the beginning of the analysis of the cyber physical interaction. So there are funded projects that fund one, but there is no, let's say, a real or consolidated market vision about which are the contamination between the two worlds, which are the information that flow between one domain and the other. So there is no, let's say, a consolidated view that is being developed by such project as that one. So I get that there will be a future for inclusion of cyber physical requirement in public tenders and will be required. But I guess that let's say the domain, the subject has to be, let's say, analyzed a bit more, and projects like one can be sort of precursors and set the stage and set the standard for which will be the requirement that will be asked in future projects and future networks.
Thank you, Angelo. I guess that there are no additional questions, so I will close this session. And I would, of course, thank the organizers for this opportunity to talk about Broadway.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you, Federico, and all your panelists. And I would like to call on the stage Bruno, just for the final conclusion.
Okay, thanks, Federica. Thanks to everybody for staying here. We are out of schedule, as you know, so I don't want to say something too long, but just yes, for sure we will take advantage. We will benefit from all your comments and observation. Thanks also to the panelists, because especially in the second session, the second one, the technical one, about the state of the art of the security, and the session about market. And I think that the comments we will have an importance in improving the last phase of our project. We know also, as Max said before, early in the morning, that we have to share our knowledge with all other projects in the XCI cluster, for example, and we have to find the common technology that we will have to put on the market. Okay, so Federica, on my side, that's all. I think that probably you have to say something to the people, and so thanks a lot to everybody.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bruno, for your conclusion, and I would like just to remember that all this event was recorded, so this will be soon available on our social channels. So I would like to thank again all the participants to be so patient to stay at this event till the end. That was really out of schedule. And I apologize for this, of course, delay, but I think that the discussions were really interesting. And I would like also to thank all the panelists, and a special thanks go to Arianna and Marco that set up all these events, these online events, and communicate and disseminate it. So thank you again to everybody in this event, and I hope we'll see you soon with new achievements of Resisto.
Bye.
Thank you, Federica.
Bye.
Thanks again. Thanks, Federica and all.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.